In January of 2015, Cody Turner wrote the following on his Facebook page. To my family and friends, I'm truly sorry for this last year. You guys have no idea how hard it is to even write this. What I mean is, well, for one, I fricking hate writing, and I'm ashamed of what my life has become. I feel so bad for letting each of you down, for doing what I always said I never would. Yes, I'm ashamed, but I'm happy that I'm still alive and that I'm finally taking the actions to fix myself and turn my life around. I know all too well how drugs can and have affected our family. But hey, I guess it's never too late to change, and damn it, I'm going to break this chain. I'm really scared of failure, even though I know it's not an option and I know that I can do it. When the new year rang in, I knew what I had to do. I gave it to God, and I said, either help me fix myself or end my life. I'm tired of being like this. Crazy thing is, I haven't felt the same since. To be honest, I've never felt better. And to whom it may concern, I start treatment on January 12th, 2015. It's just another bump in the road, but I'm going to need all the support I can get. Happy New Year, everyone. I know I'm a little late. Sorry for that. And Cody did start treatment, but unfortunately, he wouldn't complete the program. And about 6 months later, Cody would go missing. Just a few months ago, his mother reached out to me asking for help. It's time to turn on the searchlight. John Lorden here. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. Thank you so much for joining me. Before we start looking into Cody Turner's case, I want to let all of you know of a special event I have coming up here on the channel on Monday, September 3rd, which is Labor Day here in the US. At 11 a.m. Central Time, I will be doing a Lorden Arts live stream. And basically, I don't have a particular topic. I'm just doing a live Q&A. I saw how excited you guys were when I had that accidental live stream a couple weeks ago. Thought maybe we should do an official one, give you guys a chance to ask me whatever questions you want. So don't miss it. That's next Monday, September 3rd, Labor Day at 11 a.m. Central Time in the US. So today we are looking into this case, and it's a tough one. You know, whenever parents contact me, that always certainly grabs my attention. Cody's mother was very forthcoming with me about some details. You heard in the letter, his family struggled with drug addiction. She was very clear about that herself. Unfortunately, we're talking about a very, very tough drug in terms of how it affects families. In this case, we're talking about methamphetamine. And as we're looking through pictures of Cody, you can even see there seems to be a pretty dramatic weight loss that happens leading right up to his disappearance. But in this picture, he's certainly a bit healthier and looks a little bit happier to me. Here we see that he's missing from Yakima, Washington. Cody Turner, he would be 26 when he went missing in July of 2015, July 26th of 2015, at the age of 24. So this poster is a little old. I believe now he would actually be 27 years old. And of course, we have contact information in the description box below, including a way to submit anonymous tips if you happen to have any information about Cody. But let's take a look at this case and try to learn more about it. Even in this photo of him here, and I know it's a little tiny photo, you can see there's been some serious weight loss, and I don't know if it's just this particular moment when he's taking this photo, but he doesn't look very happy to me in this photo as well. Cody Henry Turner, male, white, Caucasian, date of last contact July 26, 2015. The age at the time he was missing is 24, and yes, they have the current age here at 27. So what can we learn about this case? He also goes by the nickname of Cooter. He is 5'5" to 5'7", and for their weight, they have him between 150 to 170 pounds. Of course, with an addiction, particularly something like meth, his weight could fluctuate greatly depending on if he's getting his drug or not. So you might see him looking a bit heavier. You might see him looking a bit lighter. Let's get into the circumstances of the disappearance. Cody was last seen on July 26, 2015, around 9 p.m. at the residence he shared with his dad and paternal grandma. Cody had been gone for most of the day with his dog Ariel, but came home to shower, change clothes, eat, and grab some cigarettes. He has not been seen or heard from by anyone in the family since. He had his cell phone with him, but it has gone straight to voicemail since July 28th. What's interesting about that is obviously we have a couple of day gap there. So we have him missing on the 26th, and they're still able to successfully ring his cell phone until the 28th, which means there should be a ping trail where we can at least see where he was during that period of time. Unfortunately, none of that information has been made public. I haven't seen any information on that at all being reported from the authorities in this case. So I don't know how helpful the trail is, or if his phone was just staying at one static location or something along those lines. He has sandy hair. His hair is usually kept short and neatly trimmed. Sometimes he spikes it on the top, or he wears a crew cut. He often has a 2-inch goatee and a mustache. His eyes are green. For piercings, he has both ears pierced and his tongue pierced, but he has not worn his earrings or his tongue ring for a long time. On top of that, there's a scar on his abdomen and a scar on his left wrist. For tattoos, he has the name Natalie with flames on his right bicep. He has 3 skulls with swords going through them on his left bicep and a tribal stamp on the upper left inside arm. And there's some pictures we're going to be able to look at of those here in a moment. For clothing, they believe he was wearing a black Metallica t-shirt, just the standard black with Metallica and white letters on the front, a pair of jeans, and a green colored jacket. He could possibly be wearing Nike or Adidas tennis shoes. No information in terms of transportation, so he does not have a vehicle that is missing along with him. And here I just want to pull up some of these photos. Here is the 3 skulls. You can see with kind of the blade going through it. Pretty big and distinguishing piece. Outside of that, here is the Natalie tattoo. A little hard to make out. Oh, it's written up here in kind of cursive script, Natalie. But there's also some tribal under it, and then some flames under the tribal. And here is the 3rd tattoo, which is basically just a tribal design that is on his left bicep. Now, another interesting thing about this case is it could possibly tie to another missing persons case. So we're going to touch on that as we look into the details. Quite honestly, the authorities are saying these cases aren't related. I'm not positive that they're related myself. I'm just going to share the information that his mother passed along to me, and you guys can weigh if you think that that is truly related and an avenue that should be looked into or not. And you can see there's multiple pictures of his face here. I actually want to jump forward to the Charlie Project. Megan does a great job of pulling together these composites, and she, of course, did her usual excellent work here. We can see there are plenty of images of him that she's pulled all together, and you can see his look can change pretty dramatically. I mean, here, where he's got some weight on him and he's shaved his head, very different look from, say, this picture, for example, where he looks like he's lost a considerable amount of weight and he's actually let his hair grow out. So a lot of variance in how he can look. And then once again, of course, they have the close-ups on the tattoos. So what else can we learn about the disappearance? We're going to move forward to KIMA TV. They did a special segment about kind of missing people in their area, and they featured this case as part of that. So we're going to review those details here. There is a video segment as well, so if you want to see this, just look for the link down below for KIMATV.com, and then you can watch the video segment as well. Cody Turner's family says he seemed to be getting his life back together. He received his high school diploma and had finally gotten custody to see his daughter. Quote, "He was headstrong, and once he had his mind made up to do something, he did it," said Turner's mother, Michelle Joe. Michelle is obviously the woman that reached out to me. But his loved ones say something went wrong. He started using drugs about a year before he disappeared. Turner lived with his grandma at the time, and she says it was a normal day like any other. She thought he was going out to run an errand, but he never made it back home. He looked at me and he said, "I'll be back later. I love you." Mike Bastinelli from the Yakima Police Department says they have done a lot of investigation on this case, but they have not been able to find any actual evidence to determine the cause of his disappearance. Turner's mother is asking people to come forward and speak out if they know any information. Quote, "I would rather know for a fact that he was dead than not knowing," said Joe. And there was really a big sense of desperation in the tone of her emails to me. And we exchanged multiple messages back and forth where she shared a lot of different information with me about this case. But she's very concerned about it. And we're going to cover some of what she told me here. I want you guys to take it with a grain of salt because I don't like jumbling missing persons cases together, and we're going to have that happen here pretty quickly. Continuing over at the YakimaHerald.com, Michelle Jo believes her son is dead, but she doesn't know, and that's the part that hurts. In July, Cody Turner will have been missing for 2 years. That same month in 2015, another Yakima man, Chad Stotz Gomez, also disappeared. Police say they have nothing concrete to connect the cases. Both men are still considered missing. So I do want to feature Chad as well, just because Michelle seems to think there's a very good likelihood that they're connected. At the time that they went missing, there was actually a third man that was kind of added to this group as well. We're going to touch on that in a moment, but let me explain to you guys a bit about why there seems to be some connection with Chad here. And we can see we've got a photo of Chad here. His date of last contact is July 10th, 2015, so he actually goes missing about 2 weeks before Cody does. The information that she sent to me talks about a shooting. On July 10th, 2015, there was a 36-year-old woman that was shot multiple times at a homeless camp known as The Island in Yakima, Washington. We'll call her Jill. Jill claims that she did not see who had fired the shots, and she doesn't cooperate with the investigation. The police do find blood, but no bullets or gun at the scene. According to some reports that I've seen on this, there were signs that Chad could have been seriously harmed at this scene, but the detective doesn't really go into much more detail than that. I'm assuming that it could be based off a significant finding of blood, and Michelle kind of states that in her emails to me as well, that there seemed to be a large pool of blood found at the scene. And I do believe that there was testing to confirm that Chad's DNA was at the scene. I don't know if it was specifically the blood that was used or not, but authorities are fairly certain Chad was definitely at the site of where this shooting went down. Now, I know some people might be thinking, well, that could mean one of two things depending on what's going on here. If it is the blood and it is a significant amount, then we're looking at Chad potentially as a victim. If the DNA was not on the actual blood and was found on something else, maybe Chad has a reason to disappear because maybe he's involved with this shooting in some way. Now we're going to get into the rumor mill just a little bit here, so please take this with a grain of salt. Word on the streets is that Chad had been asked by Jill's boyfriend, who we'll call Jack for the rest of this, to keep an eye on Jill and keep her safe while Jack was gone on a business trip out of town. Rumors are that the bullets were intended for Chad, but Jill had gotten in the way either intentionally or unintentionally. So I don't know if something happened here between Jill and Chad, if maybe some type of romantic thing sparked up. I can't think of why she would step in the line of fire for bullets that were really meant for Chad outside of something along those lines. As of today, there have not been any arrests made in connection to the shooting, and Chad has still not been found. Cody and Chad did know each other because at one time Chad had been my neighbor, but I didn't think that they ever hung out with each other after Chad had moved, but some people have said that they saw them together a time or two. So, it's tough because it seems to me like, at least in the rumor mill, there is enough of a story to try to put something together for understanding what happened to Chad. And I don't know if Michelle is in some way hoping that there is a connection there between Cody and Chad, because maybe there's an explanation about what has happened to Cody that's part of all that. But I'm not seeing it, at least with the information that is being shared to us publicly. The only place I'm seeing it is kind of in that rumor mill information that Michelle's relaying to me. So I just want to really make sure that we all keep that in mind as we're looking into this going forward. I don't know that these cases are related. We specifically have law enforcement saying they can't find connections to connect these cases. But we do know that these men at least knew each other in some passing way. Honestly, to me, the way Michelle talks to me about it, it feels more like she is connected to Chad, that she knows Chad. And yeah, because of that, Cody was around at that time and he probably knows Chad as well. But I don't know that these are guys that had any reason to socialize or really spend a lot of time together. As a matter of fact, Chad's he's a bit older. He's 36 when he goes missing. Cody's only 24. Of course, if they're in a drug scene and that's part of their circle and part of their social life, it could be that they were pulled together by that. I mean, 10 years certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility for people to socialize with each other like that. So I can't discount it. I'm just not seeing a lot of information to really tie it together. Back to the Yakima Herald. Police are continuing to work the cases, though they say they need help from the public. Turner, 24, was last seen July 26, 2015. Relatives acknowledged that he was likely using methamphetamine and hanging out on the street with others who did the same. So once again, maybe that is the connecting factor between these two men here. But on top of that, we get another twist in all this. Once again, I don't know if it's related, but I'm going to share it with you guys so you have all the same info that I do. In November of 2015, Yakima resident Norma Emerson was a 54-year-old mother of 2 adult children who was found shot in the head outside East, I think that's Selah. Authorities indicated in court documents that Emerson was reportedly killed because she had information about a homicide committed by an ex-boyfriend. The ex-boyfriend? Jack. The suspect in that case, Raven Cutler, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Now we get another connection. Raven actually knows Michelle, Cody's mother, and has communicated with her. So I'm going to share some of that with you in a moment also. Joe said Cutler, an acquaintance of hers, messaged her on Facebook to say she had seen Turner and Stotz Gomez together in downtown Yakima. Joe and Stotz Gomez met several years ago while living in the same trailer park. Joe said Cody would have met Stotz Gomez during that time, but she's not sure whether they would have crossed paths since. So what other information do we have here about Raven? This is directly from Michelle. I've personally known Raven for 15 years. I do believe that she was there at the time of the murder, but I am not 100% convinced that she is the one that actually shot Norma, even though she pled guilty. Raven also knew my son Cody, and she left a comment on the Find Cody Turner Facebook page on August 5th, 2015. We're talking only 10 days after he's missing or so, saying that he had been with her 3 days before he had gone missing. That would have been on July 23rd, 2015. She said that later on that night, she saw Cody and Chad together at a local AM/PM mini mart. I asked her if she was sure because at that point, Chad was supposed to have been missing for 13 days. But she was adamant about it, telling me, quote, "I know what I saw." I don't doubt that she did see them together, but I think her sense of time was just off a little bit. I received a message from Raven on September 12th, 2015, telling me, quote, "I want to talk to you one-on-one. Gary is the only other person I'm willing to talk to," and Gary is Cody's father. She eventually agreed to talk to both of us, and although we tried to meet up on more than one occasion, nothing ever seemed to go the way that we had planned. The last time that I had any kind of contact with Raven was on October 4th, 2015. To this day, I don't know if she wanted to talk to us about Cody or not, but I assume it was. I have written a letter to her and mailed it to the prison that she is at, and I'm hopeful that I might hear something back from her. Now, unfortunately, I've heard of dynamics like this before in missing persons cases. Sometimes you'll have someone that steps forward that claims to have some type of information. They'll usually only communicate with a few select people, usually people that are very closely involved with the case. They'll string them along. They'll kind of set up these meeting dates, not show up at the meetings. I don't know if that's because they have good information and then they're being intimidated, or they're scared of passing that information on and then they kind of bail out, or if it's because they don't really have good information and then they get intimidated and scared of sitting in front of someone and lying to them, as opposed to doing it over social media where it's really easy just to type whatever is coming off the top of your head. So does Raven tie to this or not? I don't know. And please keep in mind, we're talking about someone that was willing to take the rap even if she didn't do the shooting herself, and is now sitting in prison for up to 30 years. So we really have to consider the source in this as well. Did she really see Chad and Cody together? I think Michelle hits it right. I think there's probably some likelihood of that, but the timing certainly seems weird to me, especially when we're talking about Chad's story here and the potential that he was seriously harmed, which a detective has said. Could he have survived? Possibly. Even if he was, would he have stayed in that same area, in that same circle of friends, especially if he had upset someone that had the means to harm him? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially for someone that has been living a homeless lifestyle, could easily pack up and move on to somewhere else. Speaking of which, let's learn a little more about the third man. Back at the Yakima Herald, this is an article from August 11th, 2015. So once again, we're kind of getting close back to when Cody disappeared. KIMA TV News reported that 3 men had been reported missing in the last month, which sparked questions on Facebook and other social media about whether the cases were related. Any concern about a possible string of abductions is unfounded, Yakima Police spokesman Mike Bastinelli said Monday. There's absolutely nothing to say there's any connection, he said. There is no reason to believe they were connected. And the third man that went missing was Anthony Hornbeck. Now, what happened with the third man, Anthony Hornbeck, who it seems like was also kind of living possibly in a homeless lifestyle, although I do believe he had a vehicle as well. Over at KIMATV.com, we get an update. This was on July 14th of 2016. So almost a year later, we actually get an update that a Facebook group for one of the men, Anthony Hornbeck, says he's been found alive in Oregon and left on his own. So is Anthony connected to what's happened to the other two? I guess we could theorize possibly if they would have left on their own also and maybe gone to different places. I don't know if these men were all in the same circle, if they all had the same risk in terms of upsetting someone that might want to harm them, possibly Jack, something along those lines. But Anthony Hornbeck does turn back up. His car is actually found before he's found, but as far as these types of missing persons cases goes, his, to me, doesn't feel like it's related to the other two guys. And I would bet that he was questioned when he was located by these local authorities. And if they had some connection there, I would think that they would share that publicly. The only comments I've seen have been time and time again that these cases are not connected. Where does that leave us? Let's go back to KIMATV.com. July 26th, 2018 is when this article came out. I won't ever give up, said Michelle Joe, whose son Cody Turner went missing July 26, 2015. Joe said her mother's intuition kicked in the next day, and she knew something was not right. I don't even know how to explain it, she said. Just dread, sadness, all of a sudden just a feeling I had that something was really wrong with him. That's when Cody's dad came over asking if she had seen or heard from their son. And in her communication with me, she's even a bit more open about her feelings around this. And in something that is very, very unfortunate, the last time she spoke to him, they were actually arguing. I don't know what the argument was about. I imagine she wasn't really happy with his lifestyle, but it's just tragic when the last communication that a mother has with her son before her son goes missing is any type of disagreement like that. And unfortunately, that's what we have in this case. Joe said her family will continue to search for their loved one, and right now they are just looking for closure. My hope at this point is that someone will step forward, Joe said. I just want to find him so we can have that confirmation. And I do hope that someone out there has the missing pieces of this puzzle. Maybe if there's something that you heard during this episode here today and that's triggered some type of memory, please call that information in. There's a website you can use for Crime Stoppers. It's crimestoppersyakco.org. I'll have a link to that down below, and you can stay completely anonymous. You can do it through a web tip. You can actually submit a tip online, or you can call the hotline. You can stay anonymous. If you want to, go to a local payphone or something like that, so that if you're really worried about being traced or something along those lines. Maybe you can even try star 67ing when you're calling this phone number if you do want to use your own cell phone or something along those lines as well. But on top of that, I'm going to have the Yakima County phone number down below and the Yakima, I believe it's the City Police Department as well, because it seems like they've both been working on this case. And if you do have a tip, maybe you want to call in all three. I've certainly heard time and time again that sometimes tips don't seem to be acted upon. And if you want to increase the odds of helping Michelle and helping this family understand what happened to Cody, that might be your best way to do it. On top of that, you can follow them at facebook.com/find Cody Turner. I believe his mother is managing this Facebook page. Any events that are coming up, occasionally they have I don't know if they're memorials or really more like vigils, but I've seen that they've had a few events in the past where they've had people get together to try to support each other through this and other people that are missing in the area as well. So be sure to come to facebook.com/find Cody Turner so you can keep up to date with the latest information. On top of that, there is a Web Sleuths thread when Web Sleuths isn't crashed. There we go. Unfortunately, it's only one page long, not a lot of information. Basically the same articles that I've already shared with you here. There is a Reddit thread as well. Not a ton of really good debate or information going on here either. I think basically with that information that I've given you that came straight from Michelle, this is probably one of the better sources that you're going to find, even for theories on this case at this time. Speaking of which, where are we with the theories? I think obviously we have to consider the possibility that Cody could have left of his own accord. Maybe falling off the wagon was too much to face, especially after leaving such a heartfelt message to all his family, apologizing for how things had been. So maybe he did disappear on his own. Outside of that, we do have this story where there's a lot of violence that's kicking around, more in terms of connections to Chad. But if Cody is part of that same circle, could he have been wrapped up in that in some way? I think we certainly need to consider that as well. And I don't really want to think about this too much, but it was his own words in that Facebook post. I hope that he didn't choose to end his own life, but I do think that we need to consider that possibility as well. But, you know, I don't know. In a lot of cases, when someone decides to do that, the body is found and the family does find out about that relatively quickly. We're now looking at, 3 years on here and the family doesn't have answers. And I hope that isn't the answer for them in this particular case. But you can see, especially from the press that's been around this, his mother's pretty clear that she doesn't expect him to be found alive. And honestly, I don't know. I think the likelihood that he could have left the situation is strong enough that we shouldn't completely rule that out. That maybe there was just too much shame around not completing the program, around his drug addiction. Maybe he didn't want to harm his family by being around them when he was in that kind of state, and he's kind of gone off to go do his thing. But 3 years, certainly a huge cause for concern. But maybe there's something else at play here. And maybe you're the person that has that information. If you are, I hope that watching this video might move you towards using that information. Send it in, use the contact information in the details below. Help this family learn the truth of what has happened to Cody so that they can move forward from being in this position of being stuck. We're talking about a mother, a father, we're talking grandparents, siblings, and on top of that, Cody had a child as well. So we've got a lot of people affected by this. And if you do have some information, please find it within yourself to do the right thing and to send that information in. All right, everyone. Before we get to the comments, I need to thank several people that are helping to keep me here doing what I love doing. New patrons, Cheryl, Caitlin. Hey, Cheryl, thank you so much. Effie Stoneham. Hey, Effie. On top of that, Cheryl Matthews. Hello, Cheryl. And Helen Dickey also increased her pledge. Thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate that, and it helps me help these cases. I did look for any fundraising around Cody's case. I couldn't find any that was currently active. So if something like that does come up, I'll definitely tweet about it. I usually donate to those causes as well and then tweet about it. So you might want to follow me at Lorden Arts to be sure that you don't miss if a fundraiser is kicked up on this case. So for comment review, we've got two cases to talk about because I missed last week's comment review. So the first one is Alexis Camry Scott, the Searchlight case from 2 weeks ago that we covered. She was last seen at a house party in Peoria, Illinois, missing approximately 1 month after surviving a possible human trafficking situation. Really, really tough case. And we're starting with someone that is becoming one of my favorite commenters, Lou Sozo. Parties don't start at 5 in the morning. Really good point, Lou. Maybe she went there to collect money owed or to get high. I believe that she was lured into prostitution. I believe she was on drugs. I believe she was killed in that house and the crime scene was sanitized. The cops dropped the ball. Why didn't they use luminol? Do they really buy the story that it's normal for the washer and dryer to be removed? When you wash blood-soaked clothes, DNA evidence is probably there, so the culprits need to get rid of it. Power washing can also remove evidence. Also, the burnt mattress is destruction of evidence. Lou, when you pull all those points together like that, you are absolutely right. It would certainly seem to me that someone was destroying some type of evidence here. The catch is we know that this is a house where there are some illegal activities going on. So is it evidence that's related in particular to Alexis, or is it evidence about something else to do with the drug operations that are happening in that house or were happening in that house at that time? I don't know, but you make a really strong point, and I really appreciate that you pulled it all together like that. I do know that you're being pretty direct about what you believe happened in that house, but I don't think that her mother is probably that far away from your belief in that either, which breaks my heart in a really big way. I would love for this story to have some other outcome, but it certainly does seem like something happened in that house. Clint Bandura, fentanyl is usually sold as heroin because a dealer can cut such a tiny amount of it and make a hefty profit from it. Thank you so much for the update on that, Clint. I just don't know anything about fentanyl. I've never experienced it, never heard about it before. This is the first case where I've even run into it. So I'm really appreciating you guys sharing this knowledge with me. On top of that, Xanthi says, also, just for people who are curious, it's often prescribed for terminal or end-of-life care because it's really, really strong stuff. Yeah, I get that from the description that I read. That is some seriously strong stuff, and for anyone to be using that recreationally doesn't sound like a great idea to me. Patrice S., every life has value no matter what she did. She has a family that loves and cares about her. My heart goes out to the family. Just because a child strays doesn't mean they come from a bad background / upbringing. Patrice, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I did notice there was a lot of comments going back and forth, kind of to your point, Patrice, about the value of this life. And for me personally, I don't see it like that. I see a life is a life is a life. And I worry that people do that they try to set a value to life because they want to not have to care. And if you're a person that wants to not have to care about other people, that's like you closing off a part of your heart to others. And maybe you think that's safe because then your heart can't be hurt in that way. But when you close yourself up like that, you're also closing out the good that could come from that type of person as well. If you are writing off someone just because they're in this group of being a particular type of drug user or having a particular type of profession. So I understand it. I'm sure that I've done it myself in my life. But since looking into these cases and getting involved with this type of work, I've been working very, very hard to try to overcome that for myself personally, to try to open my heart to those types of cases. And honestly, I can tell you guys, for me, it's already brought a ton of light into my life because I get to meet these wonderful family members that are some of the biggest examples of strength and perseverance that I've ever seen in my life, better than anything Hollywood can sell me in some stupid movie. So for me personally, I will never give up on these cases. I will never give up on these people. And I appreciate there's people like you out there, Patrice. That being said, Orange Everything makes a comment. As we see time and time again, high-risk lifestyles often end really badly. Orange Everything, I wanted to include your comment because, yes, I do understand that as well. And I think that's another important aspect to us being able to share these types of stories so that other people can consider these types of lifestyles that maybe they're on the path to, but they're not fully immersed in yet. Or maybe they think about from time to time, boy, life would be easier if I was making several $100s a night, just being eye candy for rich guys at a boxing match. Well, maybe we should be paying attention to these stories and caring a bit more about these stories. And if we do, that's a benefit that all of us can get, is learning the lessons of these stories. And it is tough. It is tough when you're looking into case after case, kind of like today's case, people using a very, very serious drug, getting into a circle that when that person goes missing, now you don't know if it's because of this lifestyle choice that they've made. So I certainly understand that. Let's move on to the case of Danny Oberg from Sweet Home, Oregon, disappeared while driving his friends around. And I put friends in quotes when I wrote it down here because I'm not sure that these people sound like the best types of friends to me. He was driving his friends around, possibly taking some of them home. That's part of the story that we heard from his father, Ken, who we interviewed and gave us all the details on that. JB says, I don't believe for a second that Danny would leave those two dogs out there to fend for themselves, not with the way he cared for them. I also believe that it would have taken something big to get those dogs to leave Danny. My dog is a pity mix and easily the most fiercely loyal and clingy dog I've ever owned. She would freak out if I tried to get into a car without her, or if someone tried to take me somewhere without her. Misa was so loyal to Danny, she would not have left him willingly. Losing Misa must have been so hard coming after all of this. If the family does a fundraising event, please let us know. This is one of those cases that has gnawed at me ever since Marissa covered it. JB, first of all, you make some really good points, and I wanted to read yours because you summed up a lot of the other conversation I saw going on in the thread. Many of you that are dog owners out there do believe the same thing. There's no way those dogs would have separated from Danny. Some of you talked about the fact that once they were loose, they were probably going to go back to the last location where they were with Danny. So a lot of different considerations from the dogs there. And you make a really good point that Danny, with how he was so caring with those animals, probably wouldn't have left them on, at least from his own volition. So I certainly agree with all that. And thankfully, there is a fundraising that is currently going on. There is a GoFundMe that has been opened on behalf of me and you amazing Patreon and PayPal supporters out there. We made a pretty good donation to it. They're just looking to raise about $1,000 specifically for a reward for information about Danny's disappearance. I'll have a link to it in the description box below. Please, 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 if you're one of those brain scratchers out there that has always thought about, oh, it'd be really great to support John on something, just do it on this one for me. Please click that link. Let's hit that $1,000. Let's see if that reward can help shake some information loose to bring Danny back to Ken, or to bring Ken the truth that he's been waiting for. Emma Mellor. I feel for this guy so much. You can see the sadness in his face. Hope they find Danny soon, well and alive. That would certainly be the best, Emma. And thank you so much for sharing that sentiment. So many of you really felt for Ken. And yeah, it's a heartbreaker when you're dealing with people in that situation. You just want to do, at least me, when I'm speaking to someone like that, I want to do everything I can to help move them through that situation, or to give them something just to be able to support themselves and keep the hope alive, keep the progress, the movement going. I hope I was able to share some of that with Ken, and I really do appreciate him coming on the channel and sharing everything that he did with us and being so open. Meander Lily says, Ken, I live over in Lane County. So glad you came on the channel. I'll keep an eye out for Danny. I'll share this video. Praying for you guys to stay strong and keep a hopeful spirit. Meander Lily, thank you, thank you. I literally just got chills reading that again. That's a big part of why I do these videos, is so people like you can connect to stories like this and take actions like you're talking about. So thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Ma Holland says, can Facebook not do missing post in the areas that surround where a missing person was last seen? Surely if I can get posts about stupid stuff I don't want to buy, surely they could do something important with just a little of their time. Their system can single out certain locations. I get random ads all the time for just my town. And that comment was upvoted over 100 times. There was a good, healthy discussion that went on under it. As a matter of fact, here's a couple more comments from it. Lori Clarkson says, sometimes if you like your local police pages or state Amber Alert pages, you'll get updates on missing people that you can share. And then Becky MW, looking to move things forward even more, you can suggest that feature to Facebook at this link. I just did. Maybe if lots of people suggest it, they will take notice. And she has included a link, which I have also included in the description box below. I think that is a great idea. I think it would be awesome for Facebook to do something along those lines, even if they just started in particular with an Amber Alert notification system. If they just had some type of open API or some way for police departments that they've verified are real police departments to trigger Amber Alerts for specific areas, and for that to, all of a sudden pop up on people's walls that are in those particular areas. I think it's a really, really good idea. That's why I wanted to share it with all you guys, and that's why I really appreciate your comments. This is a whole different aspect. I know it's not really in particular related to the case that we're talking about with Danny, but a good idea like this really needs to be heard. And if you want to see a change like this potentially happen, please go to the description box below, click on that link, and tell Facebook about it. I think it'd be wonderful. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time here today. I really appreciate you guys caring about these cases like I do. Don't forget, we've got the Lord and Arts Live open Q&A happening Monday, September 3rd at 11 a.m. I really hope to see you guys there, because if you don't have questions for me, I'm not going to have a whole lot to do. But I think some of you will show up, and I hope you're one of those. Take care, and I'll see you back here with a brand new Brain Scratch on Friday, only on the Lord and Arts channel.